Age gives you the war wounds, which actually I think from a leadership perspective and being able to come into an organisation and hold a level of calm around, different things that are going on is a tick. But currency in what you do doesn't matter how long your career's been, but it's how you're staying current. So how are you skilling, reskilling, cross-skilling, involved in networking groups or professional organisations, understanding, we live in a digital economy these days. How are you improving your own digital literacy?
Hi, I'm Renata Bernardi, and this is the Job Hunting Podcast, where I interview experts and professionals and discuss issues that are important for job hunters and those who are working to advance their careers. So make sure that you subscribe and follow, and let's dive right in. Hello everyone, I am taking a break from work and podcasting. So this week we are going to revisit an interview with Donna Burr, a partner at Watermark Search International, who did several successful career transitions. And from the moment I recorded this episode with her, I knew it was going to be in the repeat file because it's such a good one. Enjoy, and I will see you again next week.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You have a very nice painting behind you. Was that there before? I don't remember it.
Possibly not. This was a bit of a COVID project to make the study a place where we wanted to come to. She's an artist down at Sandringham, down your way.
Oh, really?
Kirsten Jackson.
I have seen her work around here. Now that you mention it, this is my kind of thing. Very colourful.
It is very colourful, and it's a particular style. My husband would say it looks like a 3-year-old has painted it. I'd say he doesn't appreciate art.
Oh, let's hope she doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And because we go to art galleries around here, I must have seen it.
Yeah. And she's very active on social media and all that sort of stuff. I think she's got quite a successful business.
It's a pity we're not doing video today because we're both wearing the same earring.
Oh, yeah, too.
Very similar. Look at that.
Very similar style. Oh, that's funny. And I'm a little bit casual today because it's quite warm.
Too hot. And I was out and about. I had an osteo appointment this morning and clients calling, and I knew I was going to run late. Apologies for that.
No, that's okay. No problem.
Friday afternoon, contracts to sign, and it's better to just,
You got to get them signed. We're in the same boat. It's been a really good start to February, and lots of contracts and back and forth and all the important stuff that's got to get signed off.
Yes, it's been busy. It's been good.
You've been well and you always seem busy.
The clients that I signed up at the end of last year, which was a really big push, for some reason, it kind of coincided, lots of great new clients at the end of last year. They're all either getting jobs now or getting really good interviews now. So,
that's great.
It's all happening.
That's good. And they'll become your advocates as well. And the cycle continues, doesn't it?
That's right.
Candidates becomes client.
Yes. So I have a client who's sending me her sister, which is really cute. Now you have to
keep it in the family.
It's lovely.
Oh.
But you've been well. You look well.
Yeah, no, we're all well, and despite the snap little lockdown we've had, that was, that's fine.
Yeah,
we just keep going on. Things are good.
But that is good, but also that keeps us on our toes, doesn't it?
Because this isn't gone.
That and I'm thinking of your clients, the employers, and the fact that they're trying to figure out, are we ready to move on and take our plans forward? And then there's a snap lockdown like we had this week, and it just raises questions again, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think I would have to say just the kind of overarching theme from our clients though is, bar having a full-scale pandemic, lockdown of Australia like we did last year, they know they can trust their systems, trust their people, get on with things. It mightn't be perfect, but they proved to themselves last year that the system didn't break. Now, obviously that's sector dependent. There obviously were sectors hit, but for many of our clients, they will I think they've started the year with optimism to sort of, or I'll say maybe cautious optimism, but, they'll get on with some of these things that they put on hold last year.
Okay. Yes, I agree. One of the things that has been a challenge for the candidates that have been made redundant, either at the start of COVID or even before COVID, is the sector transition. So that's why I thought it would be great to bring you on board, because you've done that before and you help people do it too.
Yep.
But why don't we start by telling the listeners about your career and your transitions? That would be a great way to start.
Oh, thank you. And thanks. It was such a great opportunity to do this and actually spend some time reflecting and thinking about, what was the theme that sort of threaded throughout all of those moves. And look, and really short summary of my background, I kind of see it in three parts, my professional background. Firstly, in the professional services, auditing, kind of risk consulting space, then transitioning to human resources, if you like, as a discipline, but more in the corporate sector, so out of professional services, and I'll talk about that transition, and then into executive interim recruitment, which, is really a lot of problem solving. And it's probably the problem solving piece that for me was at the heart of all of this. I love kind of understanding why, curious about what works, why things work, as one. Two is probably a bit of a service mentality. So at service, so really that probably started when I was, working part-time at a supermarket in high school. You kind of learned about those customer service skills there. And I think that partnering and service mentality has stood me in great stead through all of the transitions that I've made to really understand, accept, and then execution focus. I like getting stuff done. And, multitasking, what's that expression? Give a busy person, the task and they will get it done. That is certainly my focus. I love solving the problem and getting things done. And I think those three skills, themes, traits, if you like, were transferable across sector and across role. Really, if I go back to the professional services and auditing, it's such a privilege to be in a business, learn about risk process and how things worked. And you were constantly sort of, facing kind of problems there. And that sort of really piqued my interest. The human resources piece, again, is, solving problems in a different way. But I guess the grounding in professional services and the discipline, if you like, for a chartered accountant has stood me well in making that. I think in just really coming at those people problems from a business lens, and really, and then, into interim executive, again, it is all about problem solving and execution focus. And I think, having been in the business, in the roles, in the organisations, understanding the problems that senior executives are faced with serves me well on this side of the fence, if you like, to actually help them. I understand it, I get it, can talk their language, and we can find the right people to help them. So, I feel very lucky with all of that. But in preparing for today, it was really, I think it's those three things. It was really the problem solving, the relationship client service focus, and then just execution, getting it done.
So those are the strengths that took you from one sector to another, one industry to another. How did you actually do it, and why? What was behind the decision to take you from being an accountant to being in HR? That's a big jump, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, on face value, it sounds like it. At the time, not. I remember distinctly my last audit engagement, if you like, was with Ansett, and it was at the time that the business closed. And it really struck me at that point that when businesses mismanage or, don't sort of address risks well, it actually affects the community, it affects people, it affects families, and, and the impact of Ansett stopping as a business, and obviously we've seen many corporate closures and failures since, has a significant impact on the community. And so I think it was at that point I knew that going forward from there, I wasn't passionate about auditing per se. I was, curious about risks and businesses, but I knew that I needed to be working at a level to understand when executive teams were around the table looking at risks, how they were addressing them, how are they solving these problems, what was the governance in place. So the skill set I learned there was a natural transition. My step into human resources, if you like, was really through training and development, a passion around people, and that came about by having a mentor who supported me, a partner at the professional services firm I was working with, taking a chance on me, calling out those 3 traits, saying, Donna, these are the things I see in you, and so I think you can pick up the training and development we need to do here in Australia. I'll partner you with the executive who leads training for audit for Australia. She'll teach you the technical stuff, but it's your skill set around problem solving, getting things done, and the relationships that I need to set up a national training curriculum. He became the Asia Pacific leader, and I rolled that in Asia Pac. So I think, it's just that belief and backing.
So your role within the HR realm has always been within that training and development, or was the training and development a stepping stone for you to then move into more of a generalist HR position?
Yeah, purely a stepping stone. I think that gave me a taste. I mean, the L&D is kind of a very sort of specific niche part of human resources. I was more interested in the business challenges, so sitting around the table with the management teams and hearing the problems that they were trying to solve, and really casting the people lens on that. I think in changing kind of roles and sectors, it does come back to understanding sort of what those sort of those strengths are, and really understanding problems in the context of who's around the table and the business. I think too often, and I see this in my role now, people come to those sort of conversations with, well, I'm the HR person and this is how we solve it, without really kind of going, well, we're a business, what are the risks we're managing, what are the people impacts, what are the customer impacts, And yes, you might have the kind of expertise in a particular area to then, help solve that. But it's for me, the L&D was really just a step in. I think it was my curiosity around businesses worked, how they were managing risk and governance, that a number of senior HR people said to me, hey, Don, I actually think you could make the bridge from what you were doing to this, because you get it. You speak the language of the business, you understand risks. The people stuff, the end-to-end people cycle, you can learn that, but you naturally are actually focused around how businesses tick and work. And that probably was played back to me and felt like a natural move. So many people said, gosh, how do you make the move? But actually that was kind of a natural move of, again, that the problem solving, the curiosity, and really understanding kind of what made businesses tick. Yeah.
This idea of playing it back to you and of you having that mentor that then identified your superpower, as you say, you like to use that word.
Yep.
Did it surprise you, or was it something that you already knew about yourself and it was just great to have that reinforced? Because not many people have the support of mentors. And one of the things that I want to empower professionals to do is to do that self-reflection where they can identify their superpowers, their strengths, and not rely on other people. I mean, ideally, of course, we know that having mentors and great leaders in an organization correlates with career advancement, career promotions, and all of that. But it's not always there.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think at that particular time, I hadn't consciously thought about it that way until he articulated it so concisely. I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I've intuitively been doing, but I just hadn't consciously put the words around that. And that thing sort of gave me a frame as I was, people would ask you what your strengths are and so forth, that it's a constant theme that's come through my career. What I would say to people who are trying to work out what their strengths are is, and we sort of say this to the executives that I work with, is pick 2 or 3 people who are, so you mightn't have the luxury of the mentor, but pick 2 or 3 people who are your friendlies, who are people that you've worked with, that you've trusted over a period of time, who know you both as a person and actually have seen you sort of in a professional context, and ask them what they would see as your superpowers. If they had a job, what is it that they'd pick up the phone and call you for? So that would be one. And the other thing is, if people are doing their own self-reflection, if they think about their professional career, what is it time and time again that the businesses or the executives they've been working with throw to them? What problems are continually thrown their way to solve? And I guarantee the combination of those two, there will be a theme there, whether around the strengths of that individual, because it will have played out. We find, often in potentially in larger organisations, people often get moved around to different divisions to do the same thing. Yeah. And so, I think that's a way that people can sort of think about, what their strengths are.
Yes, I think to add to that, because I remember when I did that exercise for the first time, I was very young. Yeah. And the words that people used to describe me or to, to explain what my strengths were, I didn't like them. And what you have to do is then unpack that for yourself. Yep. What does that actually mean? So I remember it was part of I was doing a United Nations program, and I had to ask 10 people to use one word to describe me. 9 of them used organized, and my dad used stubborn.
As only those close to you can.
And I'm like, I want to be a leader. Those are 2 dumb words to use. And that, a few years later, I translated stubbornness to stamina and persistence, mm-hmm. which, is so important when you're running projects, when you're running businesses. Yep. You have to have that stubbornness. And organize is process-driven, continuous improvement. And you Absolutely. Know me, you have to be so organized to actually take an organization from A to B, yep. and have that almost like a general's mind. That's why I like John Monash so much, Absolutely. Yep. You have to have that understanding of the battlefield. So use that. If you're listening and people tell you funny things, go to my Facebook group and I'll translate that to you.
Yeah, it's so true. And sometimes it's hard to hear that information, and yeah. or sometimes what gets played back to you is the most obvious things, and you kind of go, of course, of course that's a strength. That's just what I do. And it's almost bringing what sort of you unconsciously do into your kind of consciousness, if you like. Sometimes it's not rocket science, and it's not leadership, and it's not all the grand things that you'd like it to be. But I think you need to kind of take that feedback on with interest and curiosity, and listen, as you say, spend some time kind of reflecting on it, because it's telling, right? It's what people have seen over a long period of time. And if you're sort of true to yourself and what your strengths are, those things will continue to sort of come out. So yeah.
That's right. And then you made another transition from HR to executive search. Now, explain the terminology executive search for the listeners, because I like to use the word headhunter, but I think headhunting is very 90s, And I'm sure I have a feeling the executive search professionals don't like that word anymore, do they?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the headhunting, I guess, is one approach you can take to executive search, yes. in terms of sort of targeting and approaching particular people in roles for executive roles. But executive search is, executive search businesses partner with organisations to, one, understand, strategy, business, state of play, what their needs are, and are engaged then to find executives to come into that organisation. And the search process, if you like, to find those people is extensive. For some search businesses, that's a global search. They have research departments who are well networked, and sometimes the roles and the asks are quite niche. But executive search is typically engaging a third party to go out and find you a diverse range of executive candidates. And executive can look different in different organisations. For us, it's typically, a salary that's over the 220K mark on a permanent basis. But and find a diverse long list, short list of candidates to present who would be open to a conversation, with that organisation and going forward.
Yeah.
My particular passion is in the interim space, so actually working with clients who call us typically in a crisis because they might be going to market for that permanent executive, but for whatever reason there is a short-term need to fill the role while they do that. Could be that somebody's left in a hurry, could be a transformation project that's gone awry, and we need to turn those assignments around in 3 or 4 days. And hence, I guess, to partly answer your question about the transition, is the execution focus. It's the catching the problem, the service to our client, and then quickly turning that around. Probably ticks off my 3 strengths, to be honest. So when I initially, Jacinta, who I work with here in Melbourne, when we initially spoke about, we were talking, met early on and built a relationship there and talked about me joining her at Watermark, I sort of thought, executive search, how I don't have any experience in that. Like, how could I be of any value? And she said, "Are you kidding me?" Mm-hmm. She said, you're great at problem solving. You've sat in the shoe of, our clients that we're speaking with. So you get their problems, you get their language. And she said, you're great at delivering. We've got to turn these things around in 3 or 4 days. She said, why do you think you couldn't do this? So I've joined, and here I am 3 years later, and love it. And it is, and I think probably for the first time in all of my career, it really feels like the coming together of all the different experiences and those strengths really being able to come to play. And I think if I think about from an energy effort, it just feels comfortable and easy, good use of my energy. I get energized by, it's probably the word, not energy sapping.
Yeah. And Donna, now you are seeing lots of professionals every day. Mm-hmm. Some of them are genuinely interested in entering. Others are looking for whatever type of work they can find, and they see entering as a stepping stone, let's say. But regardless of that, because we have an interview on this podcast with Jacinta where we talk about entering, so I'm going to leave that on the side. Perfect. And let people know that the episode is there. They can search for it on the episode show notes. I'll have a link below. But what I'm interested to know is how you and your peers support executives that have come to you, especially recently, from sectors that have disappeared.
Yep.
And also there are specific professions that are not as much in high demand as they used to be because of the changes and the volatility and the uncertainty in the market. So we have the 2 things happening. We have sectors that are feeling the grunt, and we have professionals from specific expertise that are not in high demand. Mm-hmm. How do you help them?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and COVID certainly has really created divides for different sectors. So if I start we often get asked, how do I change sectors? If I've been, agnostic of sort of COVID and sectors that are sort of come into demand and those that don't, but if I've been in the energy sector for all of my career and I want to move to financial services, or I want to move into not-for-profit, how do I do that? Too often we find executives fronting up to conversations in those sectors where they basically, talk about, here's what I've got to offer. And we always say, think about a couple of things. Think about the problems that sector's facing. Do your research, understand what is going on. If it's aged care you're going into, have you read some of the standards that have come down through assisting council around the recommendations to aged care? Think about the problems that they are facing and grappling with. For one, do your research around, sort of people in that sector. Who are they? What's going on? Who's moving? Are there people in that sector that you can meet with, tap into? Are there professional bodies that you should be connected to within that sector to understand? This is all kind of building up to how do you build a new network in the sector that you're trying to approach. So it's partly the research, partly sort of networking with people in that sector. And then I think it's coming down to what are some of the problems they're solving and how are your skills transferable? So yes, I'm big on superpowers, and the way that we often take sector off the table when we're having conversations with our clients and trying to introduce a candidate into an organisation is the problem what's at the heart of the problem that they're trying to solve, and what are the skills or superpowers they need to solve that. And in fact, if that client's already been trying to solve that problem with skills in sector, there wouldn't actually be a smart thing to do to get a fresh perspective from somebody who's solved a similar problem, different context, different sector, but has solved it over here, to come in and give a different view. Usually we can make some progress on that front. But then, to your point, what it comes down to, for people who have found themselves out of roles in a particular sector, is coming back to the conversation we started with. What are your strengths? What are your superpowers? Because when you can articulate what your superpowers are, and you can assure a client or play back to a client the problems that they're facing or how you understand it. Again, you don't have to be an expert in the sector, but you've got to take the time to actually understand and marry how your superpowers can come and support them. Yeah, that problem sounds like when I was, over here doing X, this is how we solve that. And I imagine, you're probably grappling with A, B, and C. Clients listen. They've been heard. People want to be heard. So, there's a couple of things in there, but I think around the sector that you're pursuing, pick the one that you're interested in, do your research, understand kind of the issues facing it, the people in there that you might be able to network with, professional bodies or networking groups you could get involved with to really open that connection there. And then really, from a personal perspective, a real inventory of what your strengths and superpowers are. And then I think you're in a position to open up a conversation and sort of get the sector piece off the table.
It's interesting what you're saying, because what you're advising people to do is to, again, niche down into another sector. This idea that because you're out of work, you should be applying for a gazillion different industries, sectors, is not going to pay dividends, because it will never allow you to design a good job application. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately you need to be hungry for it, right? And it needs to be, come back to values alignment. And if it's fine for the head to be in it, if the heart's not in it, that will come through as well. So I think I would always say, is as scary as it probably feels for many executives, double down on a particular sector. Maybe it's two sectors that you are really, really passionate about, both from a kind of values perspective and or have interest with the change that's going on in there, and really, really do your research. Do a market map of who some of the key companies are in there, some of the growth businesses that are, doing really well and doing some interesting change. Depending on what your superpowers are, you'll gravitate to certain companies. But, I think there's a discipline too. I think sometimes people say it's all a bit too hard. You have to put in the hard work. No one's more interested in you finding a job than you. It's not a recruiter's job. It's not your friend's job. It's not your network's job to find you the role. You need to do the hard work. And so, we would, I'll just replay another comment that we often hear from executives when they front up, and I understand the place that this is coming from. But when I say to them, tell me about your superpowers, they say, well, I can do anything. It's like, well, you can't do anything. I have no doubt that you have burning ambitions and that you're highly capable in your area, but you can't do anything. And in fact, fronting up to a prospective employer telling them that you can do anything is not helpful. People, the tighter you can be about your strengths, superpower, how you can help solve problems, the more likely it is that people will, one, your network will be able to help you, but two, an employer will be able to see where, you could potentially fit.
Yeah. Donna, from a parent's perspective as well, how has changing professions like you had affected that? Did you take that into account? Was it part of your career plan or life plan to say, okay, no, this is going to be more of it's a lifestyle change for me as well as a professional change? Or that didn't really matter to you? Because I'm saying this because I do have quite a lot of listeners, female listeners. The podcast is 50-50, but the followers I have on social media tend to be more female than male. And that usually plays up. They're either about to have kids or coming back from having kids, and or kids have grown up. I have more time. So especially, I hope that in the future it will be more of a problem for both parents. But for our generation, it has been more a women's issue. Did that play a part?
Yes, look, yes, it did. I mean, of course, as I was moving into various roles and having children, that I've one daughter, and she's 11 now. And I think throughout, from the time that she was born, I'd worked everything from 2 days, 2.5, 3 days, job share, full-time, remotely, in the office. You name the combination, I did it. And did that play a part? Yes, I think my, if I be quite open, my last role prior to moving into what I'm doing now, I did take a 6-month career break because I'd burnt out. I'd actually got the combination and balance wrong. So without a doubt, everybody needs to do their kind of audit and inventory of, if I can use that language, with their partner or significant other, or if they're a single parent, around, what energy and capacity they've got for work. Time's finite. And I always say, when you're spending time something, you're trading it off somewhere else. And you need to consciously be aware that you're trading that off. And that was probably a hard lesson I learned at one point, which had a health impact, but, we recover from those things. I think to your point now, I'm very grateful this role that I'm in now gives me flexibility, and my husband and daughter and I flexibility to manage all of life. It's probably, I feel like a really sweet spot of being able to achieve all my own health fitness goals, support my daughter in all of her endeavours. And my husband and I, we always say teamwork makes the dream work. And I appreciate everybody's circumstance is different. So absolutely different roles I took at time. It was more about the working, the working arrangement. It wasn't so much about the role. I would always say to women, especially women who are about to have children, I don't know why we get hit with this self-doubt at that time and feel like we need to step back, feel like we're not going to manage it. If anything, lean in at that time and, you take the promotion. And I think, it's two separate conversations. You're capable and you have ability to do the senior role. How much time and the working arrangement and the flexibility you need to kind of deliver to that role is a very different question. And so, if you're only able to work 3 days a week for a point in time, or, I think clearly COVID's taught us, that balance of working remotely and in office now, I think that's really, changed the dial and the conversation. Work out the boundaries that work for you, be really clear on them, and do not be apologetic for them. If there's something that I don't really have regrets, but if there's something I wish I'd done differently, was not being so apologetic of wanting to work part-time and almost allowing the opportunity to step down a role or a level because I could only work part-time. And in hindsight, I wish I had lent in and stayed, true, I was capable to do the role, but it was about at that point in time, and it's temporary. We know things change, right? Regardless of whether you have children, whether you volunteer, for a not-for-profit, or whether you, coach a netball or football team, whatever your commitments are, children are certainly
it's one of the variables. It doesn't have to be
Correct.
Kids. It could
Absolutely.
be even a health issue. It could be you have,
Absolutely.
you're a carer. Whatever it is, you have to take that into account as you're developing your career plan.
Absolutely, definitely do. And I think it shouldn't be the thing that holds you back from leaning into, a more senior, more significant opportunity. I think they're two separate conversations.
And then we reach a stage where I am at now, where I have nothing to worry about. My kids are, I think I don't, at least not for now. My kids are all grown up, and I have a lot of time and I have a lot of energy to work as well. I have clients and people that I know that have reached that stage, and they have found it harder to look for work. They have found that they don't know how to place themselves. There are issues there of ageism that they have encountered. And as clients, we work very much to address them and build strategies around them. But at the same time, you have people that are ready to work pretty much full time. I see myself like I've never been. I think the last time I had this much energy was when I was in my 20s, you know, and now I have all this energy and all this time. So there is no need, and correct me if I'm wrong, to opt into interim work or portfolio work if you have the stamina and the energy, the time, and sometimes maybe the need financially. Or for another reason, to have a full-time employment if you are in your late 40s, 50s, and even 60s, right? How do you support clients that are older? Because I'm assuming most of your candidates are of that age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the average is certainly kind of 50 plus, late 50s, coming into early 60s. Two things always, and I think the ageism is real for many people, and experienced, and often having conversations about that. Two ways or two things that come to mind to sort of get that off the table or address it. And the one that I think is most important is currency. You know, often I hear, so I'm meeting with a CFO, they're like, well, I've been a CFO for 40 years. I've got 40 years of experience. And I go, that's great. So that gives me kind of depth in your trade. But talk to me about the last 3 to 5 years. What are the problems you've solved? How are you getting across digitization in your area of expertise? You know, what are some of the changes that are going on that you're seeing? What are some of the big organizations doing with their finance functions? What are the global issues that are impacting CFOs these days? And then, you know, I hear nothing, or I hear bits and pieces. So you have to own that regardless of your age. So age gives you the war wounds, which actually I think from a leadership perspective and being able to come into an organisation and hold a level of calm around, you know, different things that are going on is a tick. But currency in what you do doesn't matter how long your career's been, but it's how you're staying current. So how are you skilling, reskilling, cross-skilling, you know, involved in organisations, in like networking groups or professional organisations, understanding. You know, we live in a digital economy these days. How are you improving your own digital literacy? No use kind of rocking up and, you know, fiddling around with Zoom and not being able to connect to a meeting. You'll appear like an old fuddy-duddy. And again, it's not about being the expert in all of these things either. It's about literacy, and it's about showing curiosity and currency in doing that. So, you know, I get really buoyed when I meet an executive who may not have been employed in permanent role, but you know what? They are keeping their Monday to Friday busy, and not busy for the sake of it. They're being very disciplined about two things. One is around that currency, and being seen at particular events, speaking to particular people. So they've got something interesting to talk about and talk to when they're meeting with would-be employers. The other thing is networking. We always say to our executives, your networks and the strength of your networks will absolutely be a lead indicator of your success in finding your next role. Today, more so than, I think it's sort of, for me, it feels like it's exponential, but those networks of, you know, your allies and your competitors are, you know, 1 or 2 degrees of separation. And so with the like of LinkedIn, and I know you do, you know, some fabulous work there with people's digital presence rather, and sort of networking through LinkedIn, Renata, it is absolutely key. And I think at an executive level, when you get, regardless if it's full-time or interim employment, whatever you're getting into, but your brand out to market is key. How you're keeping those networks current and keeping connected. It's that give and get relationship. It's not fronting up to your network expecting them to get you a job, but what can you give into that network, and how are you? We always say, don't leave it on the table. If you're in the market for a job, you need to let your network know that you're in the market, for a job, and what they can refer to you, or, do they know others who might need your skill set? Like we always say, don't front up to those networking conversations just for a chit chat, and then in the last 5 minutes stumble over the fact that you really do need a job. And here's what you do, go to that with purpose. We always say, if someone's agreed to meet you, they probably genuinely want to help you. So, help them help you by letting them know, what it is you need. So I think networks and leveraging those and the currency of your skills is key.
Donna, and I think sort of getting to the tail end of this chat, which is lovely. I love hearing you talk. You're so good. But I think we need to talk about the situation right now with your the intelligence that you can share with the listeners about the job market. We are in Melbourne, Australia, so of course, it's very specific. But I hope that people around Australia and in other parts of the world can use this as a sample of, of what's happening and what could happen in a country where COVID is more or less under control. Vaccines are starting to roll out. We have been in very hard lockdown for most of 2020 here in Melbourne. What are you seeing now? What's trending now for your clients, the employers that are looking for workers in 2021?
So if I go broadly with some of the lead indicators that we would look at, and Renata, happy to share some research we sort of did recently, a market update, and I guess we're only just into 2021, but certainly pulling on the McKinseys and others around their predictions for 2021, and then we sort of tied that into our anecdotal conversations with clients. So happy to share that as well.
Yeah, we can link that in the episode show notes. So people that have access to episode show notes, look below. Now this podcast is available on things like Audible and Siri and Alexa. So I don't know if people actually look at the episode show notes, in which case just go to my blog on my website, renatabernardi.com, and you will find the links there. Okay, go ahead. Tell me.
Yeah. But certainly in January, and actually I think it was from November last year, the number of roles that are being posted, so job adverts through Seek, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, if you sort of follow that, it sort of crashed and fell off a cliff in March of 2020, not surprisingly, and started to rebuild. But November, December, January, we saw a number of postings of roles go up. And of course, that's not just at the executive end, that's all end of employment. And I think it was November 2020, year on year, there was growth. So the market certainly bounced back. Now, clearly there are sectors that, hospitality, some of the kind of entertainment sector, some of retail's sort of skyrocketed. Education with international students impacted. And, of course, those sectors will be a long time coming back. But if you sort of said to me, health, government, manufacturing, some of those ones that you've highlighted and many of your listeners will be in, they're bouncing back. And anecdotally, I think the conversations our clients, or the overarching themes coming from the conversations with our clients, are that 2020 showed that they can rely on their technology, they can rely on their people, they can rely on the systems. It wasn't perfect, but the things that they had to do at short notice and scale a workforce offsite and bring people back in completely, launch a different proposition to connect with their customer base, offer a very different experience in a world where we're in lockdown. They did it. And so, bar another sort of whole-scale lockdown in Australia, they'll be able to move forward on some of these projects. And yes, what it's probably taught them is resilience and being adaptable and flexible. So I know they're very broad comments, but certainly there's cautious optimism, certainly in our client network, that plans that they've had for acquisitions or divestments or growth will continue. Of course, cash is king, and monitoring cash flow, obviously with job seeker payments finishing soon, will be interesting to see, what impact that has on certain organisations and sectors. But certainly cautious optimism. Our clients are, looking forward. In terms of skill sets, broad now, I'm coming from the lens of executive interim search, but, for our business in particular, health sector and some of those sectors that are dealing with the current issues of the day, royal commissions in financial services, aged care, those sectors will continue to be busy. And I guess going back to our earlier conversation, pick up the paper on any given day, you'll see the sectors that are in the news. They are the ones that no doubt will be busy, changing, and looking for people. So no magic science there, but certainly cautious optimism, I'd call it, going forward.
It's really funny because this week we're recording this when Facebook pulled out all the news from its platform.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, who reads the news on Facebook anyway? I want these listeners of this podcast to bloody read the news where it bloody belongs.
Exactly.
Do not read your news on Facebook. You shouldn't have done it before.
Yes.
Now in Australia, you won't be doing it apparently in the future. So that's actually very good. I'm actually very happy.
Yes, no, I would say to the listeners here, pick up the Financial Review, and it's. Any of this is discipline. I think if you're an executive or a job hunter in transition, be disciplined about your week. You need a reason to get up in the morning, a rhythm to the week. Yes. It should be reading the paper. It should be mapping out those sectors that you're interested in and who you need to connect with. It should be looking at your digital profile, your resume, and seeking the help that you need to. It should be getting out and speaking to people, be it virtually, on a Zoom or Teams call, or in person where we can. Be disciplined about it. There's no short, quick, fast way to do this. And without a doubt, our executives, the people who I meet who do that, have a disciplined focus about it, it does pay back to you.
I know. Have you downloaded my optimized job search template?
No, I have not.
Oh, I have to send it to you. I may need to pull that down because it's so good. Will not hire me after they have that thing. It is a freebie on my website.
Oh, and you're so giving and generous with your tools.
Last month, over 600 people downloaded that optimized job search. It is so good, and it's exactly that. It creates an optimized job search routine for you, and I offer 3 different schedules. One for people that are job searching full-time, another one if you're job searching part-time, or a light version. Let's say you have a full-time job, or you have kids, or you have something else on and you can only do a little bit during the week.
Yep.
And it kind of picks up on the best ways to do it, the best days to do it, so you don't spend time.
That is gold dust. That really is, and it's such an important.
I'll send you the link rhythm. So you can give it to your candidates. Yeah,
I absolutely will. It's the thing that I think, in speaking to our executive network, when they've come out of a role, and and the emotions sometimes that's surrounded with that they find it difficult to get back into, when they haven't got that routine of getting up and going to work each day. Finding those new patterns can be difficult. So actually putting some structure around that, I think, is really helpful.
A lot of the people, not a lot because it's not a big group, but the people that have signed up for the group coaching program that starts this week have downloaded this thing first, and they started working on it, and then they're like, oh no, okay, let's do the group coaching. So I'll send it to you.
Please do.
Anything else you would like to leave as the final thoughts or ideas for the listeners of this podcast?
Yeah, look, I think for those who've been, on the job hunt for a while, take a deep breath and, surround yourself with, some true partners and supporters to keep you buoyed up, because I absolutely can empathise and compassionate towards. It's tough. The market is competitive, and, it can be very frustrating and, demoralizing sometimes when, you're either getting knockbacks or, you just feel like you're not anchoring. But, the things we've spoken about today, I think, keep the discipline there, keep the pattern, belief in yourself, surround yourself with people who will prop you up when you need that propping. And I do strongly believe that if you do focus on all those things, you'll start seeing the leads, and the conversations will absolutely happen.
Excellent. Donna, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Renata, and thank you for all the amazing work that you do. We love working with you. You've got your heart and passion squarely in the court of the executive job hunter, and I think you just do such an amazing job. So thank you for the opportunity to have a chat today.
My pleasure. Hi, I'm popping in again to remind you that Donna and I spoke briefly about the optimized job search schedule. There's also a workshop, and it's available for you to watch on demand. There's a link to it on the episode show notes. So go to the episode show notes here on wherever you found us, iTunes, Spotify, or go to my blog, renatabenardi.com/blog. Search for this podcast, and all the links we discuss are in the blog, and you will then be able to access the optimized job search schedule. And if you want to go a step further, you can watch the workshop and make even more use of that schedule and get a bit more of me and my advice. Bye for now.